Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today we got a bunch of stuff to talk about surrounding the black and gold here on a Wednesday. First up, there is a report that Russell Wilson is on thin ice with the Pittsburgh Steelers and needs to have a strong performance this week against the Baltimore Ravens to secure his status as this team's QB1 heading into future seasons. Speaking of a potential future quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers here in future seasons, Justin Fields could be playing a bit more this week versus the Baltimore Ravens. I'll explain why in the middle of today's video. Also, we got the latest on George Pickens' standing on this roster in 2025. There's certain rumblings that the Steelers may consider trading him this offseason. And we'll finish up today's show. Make sure you guys stick around because we got the latest Sam Darnold trade rumors when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. After a tough performance versus the Detroit Lions, could a trade for Sam Darnold may be more likely now than it was last week? We'll cover that at the end of today's show. But before we get into the content today, if you want extensive content on my X account, you can find me at Jack_Sperry. Film analysis. I put out a bunch of stat analysis on there as well. So if you want stuff from me outside of this YouTube channel, you can find me at Jack_Sperry. Okay, now let's get to this report here from Dan Graziano from ESPN, who says that it's quote-unquote not a sure thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers bring back Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback for the 2025 NFL season. This is what Graziano had to say. There was never any commitment beyond this year. And if what happens at the end is they fall apart because he started playing poorly, then they'll just go find whatever next year's Russell Wilson type solution is. He's in the mix. I think he's a guy that they like, but I don't think that there's any sure thing to be back there at all, especially if they're one and done in the playoffs again. And I agree with Dan Graziano here, man. This is a huge football game for Russell Wilson, and honestly, it is the biggest game of his tenure as the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. All right, you just look at the stakes for this, man. He's had poor performances here. I think he's ranking like 39th in EPA over the last 5 weeks when this offense has really struggled. He has not been a good quarterback production-wise, analytically, whatever you want to say. And if they go into Baltimore here on Saturday and it's another stinker for Russell Wilson and the offense, you have to look at potential other options to upgrade from Russell Wilson, in my opinion. However, if he wins, he's almost certainly going to be back. If he goes into Baltimore versus a team that most people expect to be a Super Bowl contender this year, a legit one of the best teams in the game, and he goes up and upsets those guys and has a strong performance, there's no way the Steelers are going to let him go, man. They're going to probably give him a multi-year deal in that case, and they're probably going to pay him about $30 or more million per season. So the stakes for Russell Wilson and his future with this football team are absolutely huge, because if he loses, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers must look at upgrade options for the 2025 season, and that includes Sam Darnold, which we'll discuss later in today's show. So now, make sure you get down there in the comment section and let me know if Russell Wilson does not return for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season, which quarterback should Pittsburgh try to get next year? Do you want Sam Darnold? Do you think Matthew Stafford could be made available? Do you want Derek Carr, Geno Smith? There's some options out there. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. For today's pinned comment, YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, make sure you go down there in the comment section and let me know what QB you want for next year. Speaking of QBs that could be the starting quarterback for the Steelers in 2025, Justin Fields is looking like he's going to get a little bit more, playing time this week after really not playing much after that abdominal injury that he suffered the last time this team played the Baltimore Ravens. And, I think that that's the right strategy. And, Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith talked about how you got to use all the weapons at your disposal. And I think that's 100% the right strategy. You guys have heard me say on this channel, yes, Russell Wilson is probably your better option as the full-time starting quarterback, at least in my opinion. But you have to use Fields on 3rd and 4th and short. So you have to use him in the, towards the goal line, right? And, that's even more relevant now because the regular season's over. Okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers are already locked in to send their 6th-round pick in next year's draft to the Chicago Bears in exchange for Justin Fields. Remember, there was an agreement where Fields played over half of the snaps offensively this year. It would have turned into a 4th-round pick. Well, now the regular season's over, so you can play Justin Fields as much as you want without having to worry about that draft pick upgrading for the Bears. So the two situations that the Steelers need to play Justin Fields more in is on 3rd and 4th and short situations. The Steelers are among the worst teams in the National Football League in those situations this year because the offensive line just isn't very good. If the defense knows they have to run it, there's not a lot of push. So the way that Fields can help that is by making the defenses worry about him as an additional rushing threat. So I think that Justin Fields could certainly be a value to the team in that regard. And then also in the low red zone. So that's at the 5-yard line to the goal line, guys. And, we see that Justin Fields has 5 rushing touchdowns this year. He is a weapon down in that low red zone. You give the defense another person to worry about in the run game as well. And of course, we know Justin can throw the football too. I'm not particularly worried about that if you want to use him as a passer down there as well. Plus, the weather, it looks like it's going to be windy. It looks like it's going to be cold. It looks like there's potentially going to be snow on the ground on Saturday. And I think that kind of weather lends credence to Fields getting a larger workload as well. We saw in the Cleveland game when it was that blizzard game, Justin Fields came in and provided a spark. And, his legs were a big reason why the Steelers kick-started a comeback, which, of course, Russell Wilson played a phenomenal fourth quarter. But it was Justin Fields that really sparked the offense in that game, and he could do something similar in this playoff matchup. And it's also not impossible, guys, that if Russell Wilson goes out there in the first half and doesn't look good again, and, you're down by, say, like 7, 10 points, whatever, and you need to do something different to try and get back in the game, and you need a spark in the second half, I wouldn't be shocked if Mike Tomlin did decide to go to Justin Fields in the second half. But if they do that, guys, and they go to Justin Fields, you're pretty much giving up on Russell Wilson, not only this season, but in future seasons, so Tomlin's got to be extra sure of it. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, the latest trade rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll talk about George Pickens. We'll also talk a little bit about Sam Darnold to finish up today's show. But before we get into those topics today, let's have a word from our sponsor here at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone this football season. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can see here, it's more than just football, guys. It's also basketball, it's college football, it's all these different things. If there's a sport, it's even got NASCAR, guys, all right? So whatever you guys want to get projections in, you can do it on PrizePicks. Here I'm taking the less on points for Jalen Williams, and I'm taking the more on assists for Chris Paul. So download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. So the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac said today that it's still to be determined whether or not George Pickens is going to return to the team in 2025. Now, obviously, Dulac is wrong a lot, all right? So he might just be talking out of his ass here. Maybe the Steelers really love George Pickens and they plan on extending him this offseason for all we know. But I do think that this situation could get pretty hairy. All right, because you got a quarterback in George Pickens who's going to be on the last year of his rookie contract, and he is going to want to get paid. I mean, he is. He's going to want to get that extension, and I'm not sure if he's going to want to play on the last year of just his rookie deal and play that last year out. I certainly feel like Pickens feels like he has absolutely earned, $28+ million per season on his next contract, and, I'm not sure that the Pittsburgh Steelers really agree with that. Apparently, he's been late to practices and meetings. We've seen on film, a tendency to crash out at times. We've seen on film a lack of effort in terms of blocking, in terms of running his routes when he doesn't think he's going to get the football. These are things that, if you're going to pay a guy $28+ million to be your #1 receiver for the years to come, those are the things that you want the leaders in your locker room and your highest paid players to do. And you take a look at his production since entering the league. For a guy that's so big and so good at making spectacular catches, there's just not a lot of touchdowns to go around there. Back in his rookie season 4, he had a little bit more in 2023, and then this year he has his career low in touchdown catches, and he took a dip in yardage as well. Now, obviously, he got hurt this year, so that definitely impacts that. But George has been the legit #1 receiver for the team this year. He was more of a #2 option to Deontay Johnson those previous years. But is this really the production where you give a receiver $28 or more million per season, especially if he's been late to meetings, isn't blocking, and doesn't run his routes with great effort? I'm just not too sure if the Steelers view it that way. And, I think George is the type of guy where if he doesn't get paid and the Steelers don't give him the extension that he wants, he might raise some hell. He might say, I'm not going to go to training camp. I'm not going to go to Latrobe. Or he might say, all right, trade me away. I'm demanding a trade out of Pittsburgh late in the offseason, completely ruining the Steelers' wide receiver room and then also ruining the leverage that they have with other teams in a potential trade. And speaking of a trade, if the Steelers end up trading him, man, because of the personality issues, because of the crash outs, because of all the different things that are risks for other teams to acquire when they get him, I honestly think he's worth maybe a late day 2 draft pick. These teams really do care about their draft picks. And, with a player as many risks as George Pickens comes with, I don't think they're going to want to give up a first or a second round pick, even though his talent might warrant a pick like that. The other types of risks, I think, drive down his trade value. So really, it's a lose-lose situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. It's either you pay George Pickens a contract that maybe he hasn't fully earned yet and give him that extension, or trade him away for a lower value than what his talent warrants. All right, and plus you're losing a player, a really, really good player. That's a great fit for Russell Wilson's skill set. And I will say right now, if Russell Wilson is back as this team's QB1 next year, he is going to be pounding the table to bring back George Pickens because of the connection that those guys have, throwing those moon balls down the sideline. Pickens is a special talent in that regard, and Russ has been GP's biggest supporter throughout this entire season. So I think that if Russ is back, that's good news if you want George Pickens to be back next year. So what will you do? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you pay George Pickens, or would you rather trade and replace him next offseason? Type E if you would extend him, or type T if you would rather trade him. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. Now on to our final topic today, centering around Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold. And I do think that the chances of Minnesota tagging and trading Darnold this offseason after his most recent game versus Detroit just went up, man, because he did not have a good performance whatsoever. He had a 43.9 completion percentage. I believe it was 18 of 41 at 166 yards, no touchdowns. It was just a bad performance, and really he got rattled on a big stage. So if he goes out there and he craps the bed again this week versus the Los Angeles Rams, I think the Vikings are going to look at that and say, this guy can't handle the pressure. All right, he may be out in Minnesota if he craps that bet again, if he can't handle the blitzes, if he can't handle the moment, if the accuracy is as bad as it was versus the Detroit Lions. This next game for Sam Darnold versus the Rams this weekend is going to be massive for his future in Minnesota. And then, if they ended up trading him and, he became available, I would love the fit between Sam Darnold and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I 100% think in this point in their respective careers, Darnold is an upgrade over Russell Wilson if they can land him. Take a look at his profile here. He's still relatively young, guys, just 27 years old. He's 6'3", 225 pounds. He's got great arms, so he's got the body type to play in a division like the AFC North. He's had a career renaissance in Minnesota this year where he's really developed his accuracy, his decision-making, his ability to throw down the field and across the middle and, make good reads. And then, I think his skill set as a play-action type passer would work well with the type of offense that Pittsburgh wants to run here with Arthur Smith. He can throw it over the middle of the field, the intermediate middle. He's a good mental processor post-snap as well. And you guys can see here that the stats this year are unbelievable. 35 touchdowns, so just 12 interceptions, a really good completion percentage, and a ton of yardage as well. He's been huge for them there in Minnesota this entire season. And you take a look at my scouting report for Sam here. He's still got that great size, phenomenal arm talent. It's what got him drafted in the top 5 all those years back. His mental processing, I believe, is a more net positive than a net negative now. And he's got a great scheme fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers as somebody that is a play action specialist from under center. But the cons, decision-making can be a bit spotty for Sam Darnold for sure. And then also he holds on to the ball for too long, and he is a minus rusher. He's not a good rusher. You guys can see here with the advanced metrics, he's 31st in EPA per rush, but in terms of his passing guys, he's 15th in EPA per play. Maybe that's a little bit lower than his numbers would suggest, but the accuracy is good enough at 11th there at 86.9. The yards per attempt, one of the most efficient passers in the league this year at 8.2. The big-time throw percentage is really up there as well, ranking 7th, but the turnover-worthy play percentage is still there for him at 3.6. The average time to throw is another thing for him. He does hold on to the ball for too long. He ranks 41st in that metric, and then he does take sacks from time to time. He ranks 24th in pressure to sack rating as well. Then you look at the results split. So positive play percentage is any play with an EPA above 0. 49.2% of his plays are above 0 EPA, which ranks him 10th. The boom percentage is plays where the EPA is over 1.0. All right, so his boom percentage is 25.1, which ranks 2nd. So he's got a bunch of big plays on his film this year. Then the bust percentage, it's not fantastic, 16.9%. He had a -1 EPA rating, which isn't fantastic, but it's certainly good enough when your boom percentage is that high. Now, here's the thing about trading for Sam Darnold. It's going to be pricey. Given his season, I think that the Minnesota Vikings are going to be hunting a team to give them a first-rounder for his services. And, with the quarterback market the way that it's looking right now and the Steelers drafting most likely in the 20s here, I mean, you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers having a pick that Minnesota might be looking at there in the mid-20s first-round pick, and I think that they might be willing to deal him, tag and trade to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for that first-rounder. So would you guys do it? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you trade a first-round pick in 2025 for Sam Darnold? Simply give me a yes or no to this question to finish up today's show. I really do appreciate your guys' support. And make sure you click that subscribe button right now if you haven't already. Coop and I are going live on Saturday for our live watch party for the Baltimore Ravens game in Wild Card Weekend. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.